Thank Tim for the period he's been chairing the meetings, the time I spent in hospital, and obviously I'd like to pay my gratitude to the nurses, doctors and all the staff of the NHS, our wonderful NHS system is. Thank you. Item 1, the evacuation procedure. So we leave via the fire door and assemble in the car park outside. Apologies, sorry. So do we have any declarations of interest under the Localism Act of 2011? I take it our normal ones from Trevor and Nick. Anybody else? No? Thank you. So item 4 is to approve the minutes of the Parish Council meeting which held on the 6th of December. This has been circulated on the website and so forth. Are members happy that these are a true and accurate reflection of the meeting? Yes. Thank you. So we are noting item 5, the minutes of the planning committee meetings of the 6th and the 20th of December. We haven't been in those, okay? Thank you. And also the minutes of the F&GP meeting held on the 20th of December. Again, these have been circulated, and we haven't been these are true and accurate reflection. Marvellous. If members are happy, items from public, item 11, I'd like to bring forward to before the clerk's report. And perhaps Sharon would like to go first with the notes we sent through to say some questions.
Yeah, so I know you had some people come and ask about play areas and leisure facilities, and there was an ongoing investigation, and I wondered if we could have a timeline for reporting back on that.
Okay, thank you. I mean, as it is at the moment, the areas in which we can do it, we've been investigating. The potential sites and the type of equipment, so we've actually had site meetings with providers of various types of facilities. The thing is with this one, we're not only looking at assets that are within Parish Council's ownership, we're actually looking at assets potentially within the whole area of the Parish Council that doesn't belong to us.
Yeah.
So we can't give you a date at the moment. I mean, the way that the system works is obviously we need to explore every option we can and then report back to the F&GP meetings with any proposals that we have that will then ultimately go through to the full council meeting for approval by councillors. So that's the way that nearly all parish councils work with that procedure. We have been doing the investigating, so we're just trying to find the areas and potentially equipment that might be suitable.
I think all I was looking for was sort of in 6 months, even if it's still undergoing further investigation, that you could just let us know that it's still undergoing investigation, or we could come to one of these meetings and ask for an update. Not necessarily to have an answer, but just to have an update on what progress has been made.
Very well, thank you.
The other question was the decision that's been made about funding for the pavilion. How was that decision made?
Okay, so it might be useful if you know the background to it. From memory, it was built the pavilion in the 1960s. So within the asset of this building, for example, itself, we obviously need to make sure that it's updated, that it's fit for purpose, very much so with the facilities there for the football or cricket, for example, to make sure that the showers and so on, and all the facilities there are really up to a reasonable standard. I mean, it's really important. We've always wanted to promote sports within the whole parish, and I know from John Brain, that he has a lot of involvement there. I think on a Friday evening they can have up to 100 juniors, training for cricket, which is fantastic. as well as the football. I mean, personally, I've always, from the age of 8, I played rugby. So some of my other colleagues here have as well. So, I mean, I was reflecting really how grateful I was for the volunteers, for coaches again at the time free of charge, to committees themselves, the bar staff, which was very important. And, for me, I can go back and now watch rugby at my old team in the same way that residents here could go and watch facilities at the rec, be it football or cricket, and also, for example, the cricket that's played in Hampton Common. So I think it's not just promoting the sport to use, it's for the people within the parish to use the facilities and as spectators. And you may be referring to the reserves we built up.
No, I just wondered how what process you went to evaluate, whether that was the best use of those funds, as opposed to spending them on something else.
Yes, I mean, what we've done, the budget, for example, we put aside money for these things because we know money's going to have to be spent there because it's not really up to scratch at the moment. And, the money's been put aside for that and many other projects. So at the moment, we know that work has to be done there. We have no building contractors in to quote for any works at the moment. So this will be a process again where we'll go through F&GP and we'll look at various works of various people. But really we don't completely know what the specifications are that we need to do, and also to tie in with the club to exactly what their requirements are as well. So again, I'm sorry, I can't give you a definitive answer, but it's, that perhaps helps explain the process in which the thinking is behind the show. Thank you. I don't know.
I don't ask the question, you've explained the reasoning around why you might want to do that, but can you point us at what point, at which committee or full council meeting that was actually proposed, seconded and voted upon to make it a legally compliant decision?
I'm sorry, could you speak a bit so I can't hear you well?
You've explained the reasoning around why you might want to do that, but can you point us at where the decision was proposed, seconded and voted on, either by a delegated committee or the full council, to make it a legally compliant decision?
Thank you. There is no basis to which we can, I can say that at the moment because there was no decision made.
So there is no decision to do that work on everything we're talking about?
No, so there's no decision made because we haven't got anything on paper for building contractors, for example, or people refurbish it.
Yes,
so we go through the process.
But you should make that decision before going out to get those quotes. On using, what basis have you got for seeking those quotes?
Well, it will be normal process. We will go out to tender to people who will provide us with different specifications.
You would not go out for tender without a decision that that is something supported by the council, because whoever is seeking those tenders without that decision.
So we're not in that position yet.
So you've got a business case to articulate the need for what we're discussing.
And when is that going to support the full council?
Let me take one question at a time. So can I just take your name again, just for the record?
It's Kath.
So just to reiterate, we are not in a position yet where we have got contractors in or any quotes to formalise any decision on spending any parish council funds at the moment.
You shouldn't be moving to that stage of doing that kind of work without a decision of full council, because you have no legal basis for doing that. And using council staff resource to get that information.
Okay, so just to clarify, we're not at that position where we've even decided how the parish council to do it. Okay?
Do you know
So
when
the money is there in reserve at the moment to decide at what point we need to do it.
So you are going to do it. You've made the decision to do it. If you're building a reserve for it, you've made the decision to do it. If you have an earmarked reserve for a project, but at some point you must have made a decision that this is a project you're going to pursue and you want to earmark reserves for it.
Okay, well, I mean, for example, the roof of this building, so the average lifespan of the roof, how long is that?
Yeah, but this is
So how,
you're talking a difference between maintenance and development.
okay, so for me, I'm trying to clarify. So maintenance, so what are we saying we're doing to maintain facilities and recreation of the building? So tell me the difference between the two.
So I thought you were planning on expanding them and developing them.
That's not the case at the moment. We will look at every aspect of it to see what the needs were for the sports facilities there and the users of the groups to decide what we need to do for the future. We're not at that stage yet. So we, as a responsible parish council, build up reserves should this need to happen. So again, like I'm saying, the roof of this building, we will build up reserves responsibly as a parish council for these things to happen in the future. So the last thing we want to do is to suddenly have an issue with the building, with any asset that the parish council has, and we've got no funds to do it.
Do you not have an inspection regime?
So I'm taking a question at a time, so please put your hand up.
Sorry,
Yeah,
do you have an inspection regime then that dictates when you need to do that maintenance?
we do. So we have councillors that do inspections of each of our assets every year. So we have tick boxes whereby they're presented to the clerk in the office. So, for example, for a feet as small as a bench that has got a slat missing out of it, we need to put forward health and safety side of things to make sure the plan is done. So on larger things, partly it will be feedback from the users of it, for example, sports associations. We will, as an asset of our own, want to make sure that, again, we know what future spending there may be. So yes, we will do surveys on all of those things.
So those inspectors identify the need for work to those assets.
Sorry, can you say that again?
So those inspections identify the need for that asset.
Well, I mean,
because you can build up a reserve for anything, can't you? So I can build up a reserve because my car might break down, I can build up a reserve because my kid might go to hospital, or I can build up a reserve for anything. So I've got £1 million in the bank and never actually spend it and never actually need it there. So what we usually do is you identify a need and then you request the money to address that need to the asset. And that's about management of the asset and asset management. So I don't quite understand. You're building up a reserve for something that may never happen, or have you identified a need for that money to be spent on that asset?
well, I mean, it's the same thing I'm saying as an analogy with the width of the building. So if it's 30 years is the average lifespan of the roof, we know that we need to budget for that at some stage in the future. So the facilities that we're referring to at the moment that Sharon is talking about are facilities that we know need updating and improving. So we can see it visually ourselves, and we also get feedback from the sports associations themselves.
So you have earmarked certain things that need doing.
But that's why we're doing within our budget, reserves to spend money on these things, because you know eventually it needs doing, and that's obviously a prudent thing to do.
Yeah, but normally what you do is you have a plan of stuff that you're going to undertake and a programme of work. So it's exactly the same as the council do for maintaining the carriageway or maintaining the structures or any other asset that you've got, lighting, whatever. But you don't just suddenly say, oh, we need to spend £6 million on replacing lighting just because it's become end of life. Because just because something's at end of life doesn't mean that it no longer. When it's reached its end of design life, doesn't necessarily mean that it can't carry on being of use. I mean, it's a valid question that's been asked over here, because you can't just say you've got a reserve for undertaking something, and yet not have a plan of how that's going to be spent. It doesn't make sense.
Okay, well, just to reiterate, so what you're saying is a plan is something that we can visually see and know something that needs updating building-wise. So
Yeah, so when you have your inspections, when your inspections are undertaken by a safe qualified engineer, he says, I don't know, plumbing is defective and needs replacing, and therefore that is one of the items that you then program to undertake. And you'd have like a timeline which that needs to be done. So you say, actually we've got leaks, that needs to be done urgently, or we've got corrosion on the outside of the pipe, we probably need to address that within the next 12 months, 24 months, whatever it might be.
yeah, that's not unreasonable what you're saying, and that's what we're going to look at. Tim?
I dare say that there's other aspects to some of the questions that people are posing, but I think the important thing to answer the question that was heard is, if you look back at previous budgets, you'll see where the earmarked reserves have been agreed by the council. We realise that some people haven't necessarily answered those questions about our reserves, and that's why we've been happy to share what those earmarks are. So if I look at things effectively, you put election costs in there, well, we know over a period of 4 years we have to accrue a certain amount of election costs. So we accrue those and save those monies over that period, so that we don't have huge dispatch sort of hikes in council tax. We have an environmental contingency reserve. We know that money needs spending on the ponds through things, and I'm going to finish it by now,
Yeah, okay.
because the chair's purpose is to ask each of you to invite any questions. So we go through that process. Your point about the rec pavilion seems to be the one that is exercising. As the chair has pointed out, that was built some 60 years ago. It's a parish council asset. There was further investment made in there some 25 years ago. It is accepted through the clubs and the representatives of the club that support that to this committee, that it is in need of update. It's no longer fitting current purposes. We also recognise that to do that, yes, we've got to enter work to assess what those costs might be, and that's why we're accruing money. Because money is earmarked in those areas. It would be very easy for us just to put that into a contingency reserve of parish assets. No, it's been far more visible where we saw that coming through. And it's the same with contingency we've got for here. We had challenges with the roof in here, we know we're replacing kitchens. These are all things that we talk about, and that's why we're accruing and saving those monies. In the same way that we're saving money for tree work, we aren't in a position to be able to take the hits, for instance, on things like, unfortunately, bits of poor recently. We've got a reserve to be able to carry those things out. So those decisions are made both at budget and through members reporting back through committees. So that's really the point here. I wouldn't be surprised if there's other things behind some of your questions, but that's really what this is all behind. Very, very open in how we go about doing it. And we accrue capital to be able to invest in the community. Because you don't have that simply if you're running as a hand-to-mouth budget process. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Sharon?
So, my question would be, I'm sure I've seen some of your updates that have come out that have stated that you're replacing the pavilion.
No, that's not the case.
So I must have heard it through, I had heard that somewhere. And I just wondered, it does seem kind of, I think that everybody's getting at is it feels like the cart is being put before the horse somewhat, where you're going out and looking at things before it's been agreed that it's a good idea to look at it formally. It's sort of, everybody's aware of it being a thing and you're all sort of working in unison, but it doesn't feel like it's been formally discussed in the meeting.
There is mention in some of your minutes about getting designs, or new designs for work at the pavilion. It's minuted that you were doing that, but there's no...
Yeah, as I said, what we have to do is contract numerous contractors and try and get the best value for money for the parish, for the parishioners, to make sure that we can get the specifications that are needed, not just on our understanding, but on what the sports users at those places are doing. So with regard to your question about rebuilding, I mean, rebuilding, I mean, if you wanted to completely rebuild and restructure a building, it would be huge amounts of money. would suggest. I would say it's probably not within our financial budgets to do that sort of thing. So we will have to look at every option to see what is, as I said, the best value for money we can get from any building contractors. I'm sure you would if you wanted to refit the kitchen.
That's right.
I mean, we always look to see what would be best for, you know, the sports facilities there, as well as the best value for money for the parish council.
But where did you make the decision? Where is it voted on that you would go out and get those quotes? Has that been done?
No.
I think in any government procurement process, whether you're talking about civil service or you're talking about NHS or you're talking about local government, and having been through all of those in the procurement process, any procurement process is going to say, we have a need here, so we will take that need, we will send it out to tenders or quotes, as the case may be, depending on the threshold. That any, you will then go out to any quote, that will come back and will then say, we have these funds or we can't have these funds. That would be the normal process on any government piece.
Just to say, you say any government process. I've worked in the NHS, the MOD, education, and I know that it is different for town and parish councils, because town and parish councils are very constrained to what they can and can't do under the Local Government Act 1972, and they cannot act without any decisions recorded in writing, and that includes going out to tender, getting quotes, anything that uses taxpayers' resource, including staffing, to do this stuff, should not happen. I can quote you the legislation if you like, that these decisions are not made legally. I've never seen have any decisions being proposed, seconded, voted upon, clearly reported in the minutes.
These decisions.
And when I read back to what Sharon's referring to, where it talks about the minutes and talks about getting designs for the pavilion, it's very clearly worded that implies you are getting designs for the pavilion. So that's where residents are getting these ideas from parish council minutes.
Well, I can tell you for sure that that is not the case. At the moment, as I said, again, we're at the stage where we know we've identified that there is a need for updating. We are not at the stage where we've got tenders from builders for what the specification may or may not be. We're liquor paint on the inside will be changed to the shower heads. We're not at that stage yet.
Yeah,
Okay, we will inform through meetings exactly what, through all the investigation we've done, that may or may not be required. Thank you, Hugh.
Chairman, thank you. For very obvious reasons, we wish to address public concerns first at this item this evening. When you take us back to item 8, to approve the budget and precept for 22-23, it will include several pages of spreadsheet with a detailed set of reserve items on it. When we put our hands up and approve it, assuming we do, we will have approved all those numbers growing up to 356,000. And I suggest that ought to go some way to allay the concerns we're hearing tonight.
No, it's completely different. You're setting your budget and committing spend are two very different things.
No, we're not committing spend. Sorry, Chair, this is the bit I'm losing.
But that's the point I'm making.
We are being responsible in making provision for a rainy day. Otherwise, as you have already said, we would find the council tax going up and down, fluctuating at very short notice because we haven't planned ahead and we get it for not planning ahead. So I'm finding it quite difficult.
This is the last thing I'm going to say on it, but I have no issue with reserves whatsoever. But I think people struggle with what's behind those reserves. So when things in minutes are not clear, it does sound like you're planning for a new pavilion if you read back in your own minutes. And two, what those reserves are based on. So it was 75,000 for the pavilion last year, and you've added another 25,000 in the last year. So you're obviously increasing those on what basis? On councillors, lay councillors doing inspections. Have you had condition surveys on all your properties, which is what most town and parish councils do? You should do things like that and use that as evidence for planning or financial surveys.
Okay, well, thank you for your interesting thoughts. Okay, is there any other items at all? Because we're bringing forward item 11 items for public. Is there anything else you want to bring up? So,
Morals Lane, and I think it's called mill lane and mill steps. So I've emailed the council and parish council on a number of occasions about the vegetation, or the overgrown vegetation and detritus on the footway. So myself, my wife and numerous other parents walk up to Hamlet School on a daily basis, take the kids up there. And to be honest, I get a bit fed up of the get fobbed off really. We just need the vegetation cleared. It's difficult to negotiate when you've got a pushchair and another child. Sometimes you have to allow the other child, who may be 2 or 3 years old, to walk ahead of you, which when you've got cars zooming up way over the speed limit, is not what I refer to as a safe condition. And all I've requested, and all others have requested, is that the vegetation is cleared to a safe standard so that we can walk up there. That's all I want. Yeah? And you get branches flick you in the face, you have to walk in the road to be able to get, up Warrell's Lane in a safe manner. We've had 2 parents from the school being hit by vehicles on the way to school. So it's clearly not a safe condition, and that vegetation just needs to clear. So that's the first thing. I got told that mill steps, if you don't like mill steps, then walk the other way. But then the entire footway is covered in leaves.
So who told you that?
I can get the email. I haven't got it with me, but I can get the email from one of the parish councillors, which I found shocking, to be fair. But anyway, the footway is entirely covered in leaves, so I wouldn't expect somebody who's not competent or isn't wearing walking boots to be walking on those leaves, because if you slip over you can break your wrist or whatever. Not only that, but the walls immediately adjacent, the stone walls are failed in 2 different places, and admittedly there's a fence in front of them, but no work's been done to repair them. I don't know if that's the plan. So, all in all, it's not a great situation for parents to, and I've witnessed parents wheeling a pushchair down the road into oncoming traffic to get a safe, to take a safe passage to the school.
Okay, I know that you mean. I think part of the issue is that, where it narrows there, it is difficult. And I mean, we have, where I live in Frenchay, there's equally roads there that are very narrow. It's very difficult to negotiate. So I do understand where you're coming from. Just to clarify, these are items and matters that are dealt with by St Gloucester Council highways.
Yes, the parish council act on our behalf. So if it's not getting done by the council, then surely you guys should be being our voice and acting on our behalf.
You're more than happy to be your voice. I mean, what we've always encouraged with the councillors here and any members of the public is to report anything like this to Street Council. I appreciate you've been doing this.
Over 60 emails. 60 emails.
Yeah. Okay, so again to clarify, this is South Gloucestershire Council's assets and not ours. So we're more than happy to try and put this forward to South Gloucestershire Council on your behalf. Okay, but it's equally something that you're able to do within the pin and drop, within the street care complaints, or you can do it direct. So we have this evening two South Gloucestershire councillors and also parish councillors. So again, I'll refer to Trevor in a minute just on a couple of things so I can go through your other points. But Trevor, for example, will kindly get in touch with the officers at South Gloucestershire to make sure that what you're saying, maintenance, is done there. Because it's a benefit to us as a whole parish to make sure that all of these places, the steps, vegetation on the side, obviously vegetation grows at different speeds throughout the year, is safe for everyone. But I just want to make sure, and I'm sure you now do understand, that it's South Gloucestershire Council is their asset to maintain, not owned by the parish council.
No, and I've got no issue with that, and I've emailed the council and the parish council, and like I say, 60 emails later, back and forth, and we're still talking about it. And to be fair, they did the first section, and they said, if you're happy with that, we'll carry on and do the rest, yeah? they just don't bring back. And I'm like, how many years does it take to do this? It's not a big task, you know. I could go up there with a string and do it in a day. It's on my own. I'm not getting it, you guys get paid to do it, but somebody does. But the point, well, okay, not as individuals, obviously, but the point is you shouldn't have to ask this many times. There are kids and parents walking up and down there, and the fact that we've had 2 being hit already. Sorry, I'm not venting my frustration. I'm venting my frustration at you, but as a speaker, but I just want something done. You know, I just want safety for the kids. I don't want to be the one who has my kid knocked over, and I will be knocking on somebody's door if that happens.
Sure,
But I want it recorded in a minute. Is that recorded in a minute?
yes, why would the clerk will do that? And with anything like this, most councils tend to be, unfortunately, reactive rather than proactive. So, for example, if there's accident black spots in a certain area, then they'll have to have 2, 3, 4 incidents there to actually do something to bring the speed down. So I understand the frustration with that.
I totally get that, but just quickly, the council also have a duty under the Highways Act under Section 58 defence to ensure the safety of the travelling public, and that includes NMUs, non-motorised users. Me, walking with the kids up the pavement there, that is a key part of the Highways Act.
Yeah, you're quite right, thank you. Trevor, if you can help us on certain points here.
First of all, can I deal with the 60 emails? The 60 emails were a long stream, and a lot of it was repetitive.
It's going to be
and it wasn't helped by the fact that there was confusion between what road was being discussed. So that's where that came from.
I totally disagree with you.
So I don't. Sorry, can I answer the question?
Let me answer the question.
Sorry, Bob. Yeah, go on.
Right. So that's where the problem comes from, and the big problem there is the local landowner doesn't repair his own walls, and we cannot go into his property to.
I'm not arguing.
So
Have you, sorry to interrupt you, have you walked up the pavement?
I've walked up pavement many times, thank you.
But I don't understand why the local farmers got anything to do with it. It's the vegetation.
Because you mentioned crumbling walls, and the crumbling walls are responsibility of the landowner, not council. You mentioned crumbling walls.
I did, sorry, that's on Mill Lane. So I apologize, yes.
No, Trevor is mentioning crumbling walls.
Okay.
So go back to...
And the crumbling walls do go right up to the front entrance of the farms. So they do cover Warrels Lane as well. And yes, there are substandard paths of Warrels Lane, but they've always been the same. And that's why we have pushed that item through to officers to be dealt with to investigate the possibility of making changes. And that was done with the support of the Environmental Group, to push it through as an item. It's due to be evaluated as an inspection scheme, probably in late March, beginning of April. I have no idea how far I can get up this. Obviously, there are lots of other areas across the county which require similar treatment. When it comes to Millwall, there are jobs there to be done on the wall owned by the same landowner. I did ask that we be given a letter of warning, but that the other works are due to take place between now and March, and will require officers to trim up the outgrowths of the walls, and then, if necessary, remove the structure of the wall to stay up. So where, as you pointed out, there are mesh fences to keep stuff forward. That's been done by council officers to protect the public. And that, as I said, is due to take place, could be pretty sometime between now and March. I have a job that I want the officer to do this week. They cannot do because the officer, the senior officer concerned, had 6 members of staff missing on COVID. If you're doing health and safety work on a highway, you cannot do it with half the squad. So they're rolling things forward. I'm hopeful that one of those items will actually get done in the next couple of weeks. it hasn't been pushed because the problem is it's always a monthly schedule that goes back a month and it doesn't get done. And the same applies to the 30-mile-an-hour scheme on the road through to the bottom end of Winterbourne Hill. That again can only be done when it's safe to do it, and that's been postponed twice so far.
Okay, thank you, John. Also, I've got another here to say he wanted to discuss the 10-ton weight limit on Harkin Hill.
Yes. Well, it was a query more than anything else. There's a lot of HGVs using the Harkham Hill now.
Yeah.
There's a 10-ton weight limit that was for the, I think it was for the previous structure, wasn't it? And then the structure got replaced by, I believe it now must be an environmental weight limit. I'm not sure.
I've actually looked into this through Trevor, that actually it comes under trading standards now, and also Highways England. So, for example, the motorway controls you see people up on the motorway. So where things with councils and police enforcement, these things have changed. So it is now trading standards and Highways England for those ton limits. And I think also potentially Travis Perkins there with the sort of lorries that go there by the railway bridge and maybe an issue with that. Trevor?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I have referred the signage on the way in, because it's very, if you actually walk past it, you've got to be right level with it in the driver's cab before you can see it. I've never seen a large lorry go up there. If you go on street to street view, there's a large lorry parked outside the Travis Perkins yard, but he's obviously turned round when he's got there, not gone across the bridge, because you can see the stuff marks on the road. So yes, there is a problem with the signage, and in fact that led to me receiving 2 photographs a couple of weeks ago, where a large lorry went down Church Road, basically because he'd seen the signs and didn't go up Harkham Hill, so he actually drove through Church Road with about 6 inches clearance on either side. But that's the problem, as we discussed before we discussed it, with that it takes people down where they shouldn't go.
Yeah,
So I have actually asked officers to investigate changing the signage there to make it more obvious. So as Paul says, it is a trading standards inspection.
yeah, it's a difficult one. The police is right, I won't say that, but yeah, it's just
Okay, that's great, thank you. I would also want to touch on the speed issue, which is saying there on Harkham Hill. We obviously that's down to the police. What we, fortunately here within French, and one of our councillors here, that we have community speed watch, which I think is a really useful thing. I mean, personally, when I drive through various villages, and you suddenly see them, you become more aware of it. So I think it's actually quite effective the way that it's done. So again, that's police community speed watch. We do ask them to look at those things. And I think the last one was saying about Hampton School. This is something that we've discussed over many years. There's been great frustration, so I completely understand where you're coming from on this as well. To the point where we've had various site meetings with beat officers. I know embarrassingly, one of the beat officers was choose my words carefully. So not very choice words were said to the police officer, which I think is actually rather disrespectful. So really, and as we know, that there are irresponsible motorists parking in inappropriate places. It's exactly that we don't want to see within our school, because, as you said earlier, this could be an accident. This could happen if a child will walk out the car. So there's been a couple of councillors quite close together that really brought this forward over many years to highlight exactly what you're saying. So we do completely understand something we're trying to do. Also, we try to engage with the school themselves to try and bring awareness and perhaps I use the word educate motorists where they're parking, when they're stopping. But really that's what we need to do. So yeah, we're more than happy to pursue this again and try and make sure. It's a very difficult thing because we've all seen, particularly as parking and driving manoeuvres, you know, and unfortunately these things do happen. So we'll continue to do this.
Is there an opportunity? I noticed in Bristol, I'm assuming Bristol City Council, a lot of the schools have got these, what I refer to as quite cool, although I might be totally out of sync here, but they look like pencils.
Yeah.
They're bollards.
Yeah.
And I thought they were quite cool, because they're quite, aesthetically they're quite nice, and they're sort of in keeping with the school. But is there any chance of putting something like that around? Because I don't know what the cost of them is, but is that something that the parish council can assist with funding with the school or something like that? Or
No, again, it's fine.
I suggest that Nick might like to answer this one.
Yeah,
because he's
because
working
yeah.
with the school, with the local police to deal with that.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah.
So
with regard to sometimes you see the pencils as markers next to schools, and sometimes you actually see sort of small child with different colours there.
So that's, yeah, sorry, that's what you're referring to there. We are looking for funding at the moment. I'm working with the Parish Council and the police. Identified some funding where we're going to get some bollards. Sorry, I'm really struggling with my mouth there. Where we're going to get some, looking to get some bollards for use by police in the schools to be put outside the schools. So we are looking at that at the moment. We have, I have spoken to the local beat and so we're expecting that the funding requirements close in March. We expect that as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Thanks again for highlighting these things. We tend to be very, very generous with the amount of time allocated to items from the public, which you appreciate. We've got the rest of the agenda to run through. So thank you. We'll take all these things on board and see if we're going to see more positive results for you.
thank you, John.
Thank you. So now moving on to the clerk's report. The items for noting. Is there anything specific you want to bring up, members, from the items for noting? No? Thank you. So the items for discussion. So South West Council decides that the Parish Council would like to suggest some road names. Parts of the new development of Parish Stoke, which lies within our parish. So this is something that we've done within Frontier, the new Red Road development, historically. We found out names of people that are very relevant, you know, mainly in the past. So this is something we want to do, and this is something that we would like to bring some suggestions of people that would know, for example. Phil.
Yeah. Considering that the home site that there was belonged to 3 landowners, of which I was the middle one, and looking at the development above us, and there's family connection names on the highways on that might be a starter to pick up. So between the 3 family names, maybe there's a starter at that point there. In what form or in what detail we don't know.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Trevor.
Yeah, having been involved in the, heavily involved in the name selection for the House Level 1 development, which again concentrated on local dignitaries, especially local farming dignitaries. The important thing is to get it right, so we need to get it right because on that particular section of development, there is one road that goes through the middle, which must stay the same road then for its entire length. Otherwise, things get very confusing. Yeah. So you can get a sudden number change where you go from 1 in one road to 3 in the next road. It's actually 2 separate roads. It's a case of sitting down and working through what goes where. And yes, I'm used to dealing with the officer concerned.
Okay, thank you.
How do you move forward with suggestions on that? Do you have separate meetings?
I would suggest we just put some names forward to a clerk and then have a discussion about it either during a meeting or after a meeting just to get some agreement. Because there's going to be lots of roads in.
Yeah. But it's just do we actually start? What's the first procedure? So we just put the names into the...
As a legal handicap, I did have a problem, I did have a set the item consent. Then you can often get the name you know.
Okay.
So because of the length of the names.
Yeah, the other thing I know from French is that we need to make sure that there's correct names. For example, rural Wales, they have to do a tick box selection, they're not duplicated and so on. I mean, another thought, I mean, might be an idea if the office was out on social media, if residents want to record any specific names, things, members happy to do that within the short space of time we've got. If there's anybody comes up with anybody locally of great interest we might not know about it, from history, perhaps. You can ask that as well. Okay? Marvellous, thank you. So the Greenfield Club's advisor is not willing to sign the security of 10-year lease. A letter of comfort was sent to them a year ago, to which they have just responded. So the clerk is waiting for an update from the solicitor. A Winterbourne resident has asked if the issue of road safety on Winterbourne Hill.
Just go back to that one. I think it's important, please, I know that in detail and being involved in the review, which will break on the second half. Just on the Greenfield clubs, needs, once we've got some advice back from the solicitor, thank you.
So going back to the Winterbourne residents, so Winterbourne Hill can be discussed. So it doesn't feel that the speed limit being lowered to 30 miles an hour make a great difference, and has asked if there will be additional measures such as solar-powered speed warning signs we do see around, and traffic going down the hill, and also the chevron signs on there are somewhat open road. Trevor?
I've already shared that with
Marvellous. So leave it to Sally to get back to the resident and inform and liaise with Trevor as to exactly what's going on. Thank you. As an observation to be made by residents, it's difficult to access a defibrillator at the Greenfield Centre when the main gates are closed. So should we consider leaving a small side gate open so that it can be reached if there is a need for a resident asking to actually use the defibrillator. So just for members of the public, we invested some years ago in defibrillator within the whole parish. We felt it's a very worthy thing to do, as many of the parish councils have done. So, thoughts, members? Security-wise, over
That's what I was thinking. If the small gates open, you'll get the kids going in and out of there all the time with bicycles, scooters, and messing about in the car. I can see the point of being able to get at the defibrillator, but I'm not sure the building would be that secure.
Okay. Hugh.
Chair, just to follow up on that point, there is a defibrillator at the village hall in Franchet, and it can be accessed because of the gates. And it has occasionally been analysed once. So there is perhaps a balance. Could we perhaps relocate the defibrillator and take a view on the risk of vandalism?
Okay. Thank you. Thoughts? Right.
I'd like to second that. I mean, if the defibrillator is vandalised, it's vandalised. If it saves the life, it's worth
Absolutely. Yeah. So are we in favour of leaving the site gate open? And is it something that we need to publicise on the thoughts to parishioners to make sure that they're aware that in the need of, it's not now that the front gates are locked, that site gate is open?
Why can't you leave it outside again?
The defibrillator itself is fixed to the building.
It's got power supply.
So, but I mean, as you may know, if the necessity arises for it, it will phone the ambulance service and give you the PIN code to do it, to open up, to actually have access to it. So that's the way that they work. Nick?
Well, I would really try and also positive incentives here. That we should let in the short term we need to get out and see how it goes. If necessary, we will try and maybe relocate it. But in the short term, potentially, if you get out and see what that. I think, I think somebody has grandson farm condition. None of that's there.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say that obviously we have to report to, it's not ambulance service, it's something else, but we report the figures to them where they're cited, so we can actually mentor to say that if anyone calls and they need a defibrillator, that we've got one here, and it will give them instructions that they need to go through outside the gate.
So members in favour of that will leave the gate open, and obviously if there's any issue, that's a problem. Okay. Marvellous. Thank you. So, moving on from there, so the grant was recommended by the Deputy Committee for the Handbook Sports Association for £4,268.88. This was recommended. Are members happy? This is again, this is in line with the actual budget projections and the documentation they provide to us. So item 8 is approve the budget for the Sector 22-23, which I will pass over to Tim in my absence, who's been working on this a lot more, so it's best if Tim can run through it.
Paul, thank you very much, and thank you to the members and Sam especially for all the work that goes into preparing our budget. Members will know, particularly the MGP, when we've been through this, we go through in great detail our respective cost codes, cost centres, and we also listen to members who bring forward proposals and ideas for investment. At MGP, we went through in quite some detail each of those lines, highlighting certain aspects around staff costs, around the increase in costs that we will incur next year around management of the assets, particularly with the new space and friendship coming on board, and have factored all of that into our proposals. And I'm very happy to take questions from any members that have been circulated if they have any in particular that the FMGP committee concluded that they would be proposing to the council that we keep the precept at the same as it was last year. Members will note that does still allow us to make very significant provision for updating management of our various assets, in terms of management of our commons and open spaces, in terms of making significant sums available for local organisations to make claims to us, to be absolutely robust in our requirements for budgeting and support of things like burial grounds and those other things that fall under the remit of the parish council. We can mention reserves, so I think it's important, and I'm pleased Hugh mentioned that as well, because part of this was the reserves don't form part of the formal budget in terms of the allocation of earmarked reserves. You have members who can share with you the current situation on our earmarked reserves, and again I'd like us just to take those into consideration when we're asked to vote and approve on the budget. So through you, Chairman, I'd like to take any questions as well.
And my thanks to all the work that gets done behind the scenes. Another life I've been involved with these kind of city budget subscriptions for local stuff and national stuff. And my question or observation is, it's very difficult, isn't it? Meetings in Downing Street at the weekend about the cost of living crisis and concerns how do we keep abreast of inflation without duly putting up figures. And so, in a nutshell, I wondered what discussions had taken place, because there would have been an opportunity with 2.4% more dwellings perhaps to just nudge it up a bit. Otherwise, we fall into the position I've had with them in the past. You hold it for years, and then you have to have a big increase because you've fallen behind.
Thank you. I think the thing is we've been, over the years, very prudent in building up reserves and spending money very wisely. So thank you. So I think we're obviously in a position now where we're able to not increase that because we've been very careful with our finances historically.
It's a fair point. I mean, don't think you're ready to be a GP last, so I'll make a comment on one of the people who's there. But also in terms of costs to us, I highlighted we are mindful in terms of staff costs. One of the questions that was right posed was around energy costs. Members of the public, I hope, will be pleased to know that we negotiated a 5-year fixed term some time ago, and therefore we're still within that. So we have been very, very careful to look at where we thought there might be increases in costs, and whether or not that was therefore relevant in terms of those things. One of the other people who attended the GP then made a very good point, which I think we all thought, is that yes, we recognise that there are rises in certain costs in terms of living, and those people that came to the GP were very, very keen therefore to say they felt it was appropriate that as we're in a position where we feel we can continue to operate very successfully and invest, continue to invest in the parish, we were looking to keep the precept the same this year. That was
Thank you. So are all members here this evening happy to approve the budget? And if so, I would like a proposer and a second.
Vote.
Mr. Charlie? Thank you. Okay. So everybody agrees with that, correct? Okay. Marvellous. So Sunday, item 9 is permission requested for outdoor fitness class.
It's not my things.
Are you sure?
Yes. I know we've had a couple of these, and it's been a bit of a discussion as to whether they should be allowed or not. This lady is looking to see if she could do something whether it's rec or a couple of college. This will be a 10 to 15 people. And she will be charging a fee to people who are using it.
Okay. Thank you. What we've done throughout the COVID period, main period, should I say, is we tended to be more understanding of people who wanted to go outdoors and do fitness for obvious reasons, not just for the fitness, but for the mental welfare and such. So we've been quite lenient with this sort of thing in the past. On the flip side is obviously the local halls would not have income from something like this. And within the assets that we own in the commons, is it right, like discussed previously, that somebody should charge for using our facilities? So, members of our thoughts on that, please. Charlie?
Yeah, I agree quite strongly. I would recommend we say no. We've got a number of people with friendship with Shaw where we're charging them to use it, and they found they were losing clients that were going off to the free ones on the Friendship Commons, so they were pleased and we stopped that. I think if it's a free, if you're doing it for nothing, and if it's a free event, then yes, we should encourage that. But that's just charging. It's a business. We should say no. She should approach the sports club perhaps and talk to the sports club and do it through them. But I think I feel quite strongly that we should allow it.
Okay, thanks for your thoughts on that. Adrian?
I agree with Charlie, because I think if anyone is using business premises, they would have prepared business premises. So it's getting a balance. I think we've done the right thing once people that need this, but we have to think of ourselves. And if people are making more money as a result of this function, that is a fair people who are not doing the same.
Okay, thank you, Adrian. Any other members' thoughts on this?
I'm just quickly, I'm in agreement with what you said. I think we have to be consistent. We have gone out of our way to try and accommodate as many people as possible through the increasing problems. But as Charlie and Adrian said, we've taken a view with other assets. I think it would be odd if we seem to be inconsistent. So much as encourage people to conduct their business on our asset, I think that would be likely if the individual wants to discuss every use of something that might be something we bring back to HGV. As it stands, I think as we've got a precedent, we should be consistent.
Okay, marvellous. So members happy and agree on that? Okay, thank you very much. So the next one is permission requested for filming at Monk's Pool. We're smiling at before, so I think we need to take into account that there won't be trees blowing down at the time that we stay there. Sally.
So, a location scout has asked us this. Before Christmas, they were building the Bridgewater, where they finished due to COVID. So they need to find an alternative pool of water to fill by. And would it be possible for them to use Monk's Pool for a day to actually make some money there?
So are they offering financial remuneration?
They haven't offered us, but obviously we did suggest.
Yeah, it's normal procedures to do that. Hugh?
In addition to perhaps asking for a fee, should we also be seeking a written assurance about making good in the marriage?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the normal caveat that they have of their own specific public liability and so forth. So yes, that would be part of the conditions. We've obviously done this previously.
There's very miracle access needed to suggest that they're going to carry their kit on foot.
But, you know, I was thinking that because the location there and right on the church in the park is not easy to park, you know, entourage of vehicles and, you know, six-wheeler trucks, I guess. So yeah, that's a very good point, and I think we need to ask that question. Thank you.
I just think one quick observation, because I was going to ask earlier, is that how much we have to spend on Monk's Pool we would expect them to spend on formal damage.
I don't have the figure to hand, but it was your considerable sum that we have to spend. Yeah.
You said it's up.
Five.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
So
yeah.
you may be a little bit.
Yes, that's my thoughts when I read it. So the members happy that in principle we're happy with it subject to conditions, that Sally goes and asks what the cost will be and what we will charge them, what they may propose to us, and we'll take it forward from there.
Perhaps if there are any extras needed.
Thank you.
I just sort of think we should decide around it. If they're not prepared to pay, then the answer is no, because it's no different to what we want to use.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, if they don't want to pay, then they just say no to it.
Yeah, what we've done historically is that we would charge something to use exactly that. We might have been charges to provide facilities for film companies and so on. We would have loans and costs we do, so it's no different from what we do from each other.
Could I assume that the clerk will be informed of the HBT, what's going on? Because otherwise we might end up finding that one or other end of the road is closed off for a significant when you get vehicles jammed across the main road.
I thought you were referring to that as going to rename Dracula. People might be suddenly shocked to see somebody there in a cloak. Okay. No, that was very good. Whatever. Yeah, okay. So we leave that one to perhaps ask what the preparatory is, or do we want to come up with
Very quickly, my memory search we've done every year. I'm fairly sure in the past we have had people fill on our assets and fees have been paid.
Yes.
So I expect we suggest through the chair that perhaps if we just go back through Sally in the office and check on that, that would give us a marker. Okay?
Right, thank you. So just going back to the cost report, so the monthly accounts, so these have been circulated. Is there anything specifically on monthly accounts that members would like to bring up? There's one item which is members again. Anything else I thought was in line with what we expect? So members happy to approve that? Marvellous. Thank you. So we have done items from the public. So item 12 is items from members. If it's okay, members, if I could just start with Charlie, who just wants to run through the latest from the Friendship with the Shore. Thank you.
No, so Sally kindly sent round details of the changes that we want to do to Friendship Village Hall. So we've got this substantial amount of money that's come through from Section 106, which is great news. Council are holding the money. We've got agreement from them for £10,000 to pay for the full structural survey. The survey's come back as it's an asset of the parish. It's just a brief summary. So structurally, the walls are sound, the roof's sound. So what they've recommended is making it good for the next 25 years for heat. The walls are single skin, so the heat just pours out through the walls, the windows, roof. So the recommendations for repairs are a new line with the inside of the building. They're looking at solar panels to go on the roof. The two boilers are fine, so they're good for at least 15 years. So they don't think there's any point in going for a heat source, brain source, heat pumps, those sort of things yet. So heating's fine, the insulation is doing, new double glazed windows, the electrics, the lighting, and then making it more accessible. And if you know the main, there's a small entranceway through that is a feature of the building. Around the side, the intention is to build this on the side, so there's a wooden structure. If any of you have a chance to look through the plans, but I'll pass these around anyway. So to build that on the side of the structure, so there's an external porch to allow accessibility. Because one thing, the hall's not accessible for wheelchairs. Pushchairs is the playgroup, so it's a nightmare trying to get through these two doors. So the idea is they'll be these ones with touch, so they'll swing open, two doors going through into the hallway, and a more direct staircase going to the second floor. Currently there's no plans to do anything on the rear section, the new section, other than changing the toilets around and making them mixed use, so male and female, and building a proper changing disabled table area and access for wheelchairs, because there are some disabled children that come into it and they have difficulty changing, there's no proper changing mats, so we're going to need proper changing facilities built for access for children, and storage area. So the remodeling the lobby area. One other thing is that the surveyor recommended we use one of the rooms upstairs, which I think you guys have used in the past. There's a small room as a sort of internet cafe type access. So a lot of the parents, the playgroup have about 40 odd children that go in there, and there's a lot of parents that drop them off for a couple of hours, and there's a requirement, they've said, you know, if there was a small office space with 5 or 6 desks with internet, that they could come in, do their work for a couple of hours, leave the children, then then golf home afterwards. General maintenance we're continuing to use from the general repair fund that we've got. The majority of the funds, about 230,000, is currently the costs that the architect has said that will need to be funded. So that does leave a small amount over the top. It's about 250 that we've got in total on retro for the maintenance of that. The rest of the money, we'll wait and see how much this work is. You know what it's like with work, you need a contingency, there's a cost there, there'll always be something else. So by the time we've done all that, the final bit that we would like to do is the rear of the, if you can envisage the rear of the new section building looks down at Tufton Field. There is a quote to have a glass window in that to open that room up, because it's a very small room with tiny little roof lights that you can hardly see through. And the plan is to do that, so if there is money left over, and we're also going to try and get some grant funds. So basically the request from the team is that whether you support it, because we only have we own the lease of the asset, so we'll need to support it. There will need to be conservation officer approval, I'm assuming, because of the windows and the small construction of the entrance hall lobby. That you can advise on that, whether we do or not, whether we talk to the conservation officer. I don't think the windows will, they might do. There's nothing structurally and externally other than that small entrance way of making it. And the surveyor reckons it'll be ready for the next 25 years. So, any questions?
Thanks for the update on that. That's very useful to see the drawings and the details. Sure.
I would definitely suggest that yes, you do it. The conservation officer rather than the fund, we should have done that at a later stage. It's always struck me that the staircase in that building is very steep. Is there any intention to sort of take the elevation down?
Yeah, so the staircase with the new extension, that will take that corner of the staircase and angle the staircase so you'll be able to go straight in and straight up the staircase.
You said that you need to maintain it.
Yeah,
the other question,
sorry, just finish off that. There is also a plan. So what we want to do is we would like to put a lift in. So structurally, the lift would work perfectly in the lobby area where the existing disabled toilet is. So it would just mean cutting out the floor and having one of those lifts that go straight up. The cost of the lift is about 50,000. So it's there, we can do it. So it is about disability access. We'd like to be able to get disability access to the upstairs area. There is one of these chairs that you sit on to go up. So, but this is too expensive. We don't have enough money to do that yet. But there are apparently grants available from South Wales and other areas that can give us grants.
my only other question relates to the black shadow. Is that building also included as part of the estate, or does it remain separate?
It's Black Huts is not part of the lease, so the lease doesn't cover that. We have been trying to establish from the parish, so the church, because the church owned the freehold to the village hall and the Black Hut, and we've asked them what rights of easements there are. Well, they don't know, because there's obviously a toilet there, there's water goes in there, there's electricity that goes in there. But we don't know what rights of easements they've got to that, whether they're paying any electricity or paying any money at all to the church. The church or any rates or anything like that. There's a bit of a black hole and black shed. Yeah. The treasurer of the black shed, who I know is running the company, doesn't like answering questions on it. But,
right, thank you, Charlie. That's really useful to update us. Any other questions at all in those lines? Richard?
It's actually the report actually the parish council.
No, it isn't. And just to clarify, the funds that Charlie was saying, I didn't hear if you touched on them or not, So this is money, section 106 money for the development of the former Friendship Hospital site, and is providing the funds to update Friendship Village Hall for the community and the local community, just so everyone is Charlie.
Yeah, so that is an interesting question, because I did Google that and say, because it's not down in the parish register as an asset, but under the rules it can be. So most parishes do. They are leaseholders of Village Hall that are long, because it's a long lease. And we can, if we want to, we can put it down as a parish asset. Any work that the Village Hall needs to be done, as the leaseholders, we need to agree, as do the freeholders. So there's threefold. There's emergency conservation officers, there's us, and then you can, we could if we wanted to, as St Elizabeth Hall could be, because I think the leasehold of St Elizabeth, and a lot of parishes do, most parishes do.
Okay, marvellous, thank you. So, if I can go around, start down. Nick.
Nothing from me, thank you.
Fine.
Yes. In June, I understand there's some big celebrations for something called a platinum. And this council, for the Jubilee, we gave cakes to all the schools and care homes. Could we sort of start thinking about something that we're going to do for the platinum this year to celebrate?
Okay, thank you. We touched on this previously on that, but thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Yes, I think it's a good idea. I mean, I think we also remember giving some of the church services groups, churches as well. So I think it's something to go back to GPD and bring it through and preach it.
Marvellous. Thank you. Brian.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and to my voice tonight. To do with Damson Bridge, foliage that is hiding the bridge from the line of sight of the motorists. The land is owned by Damson House, and the lady of the house promised me that over the weekend they will take the foliage right back. So it's their responsibility.
Thank you. That's a good advice. Thank you. Richard. Steve.
Yeah, I've been contacted through,
Sorry.
I've been contacted through staff by a chap on some play through, told me about a scheme which he's come across in Cornwall called the Yellowfish.
Yellowfish.
Yeah.
Okay.
And basically it's an environmental scheme, and in view the sewers which are up in the road exit directly into the river, and so pollutants going down into the main drains pollutes the river. And so locally they decided that they would like to highlight the fact that these drains should not be used to dispose of pollutants. And this is a scheme that has been put together as subject to the Environment Agency. And I thought this was really quite interesting. Bradley Stoke, Town Council, are also quite interested in this, and have made some moves already. And so I'd like agreement really to pursue this a little bit further and to integrate it into a larger area plan.
So the members happy that Steve initially investigates and reports back to the local committee on this? I don't normally take it, but I will show it briefly.
So WEG is already working with Bradley Stoke to look at doing the yellow fishes with the Environment Agency funds. So it's something that's being looked at. So I mean, it's really good that you're talking about it.
Marvellous. Thank you very much, sir. Phil.
There is a correspondence in the street here regarding the refitting of the railings in the street.
Right,
It
yes.
appears to be done incorrectly. Fox thickens on this subject. This is why I brought the right to machine it. because there's photographs of the railings that they put up. And what street carers say is that where the old railings, they took a picture of the old railings, and they're saying that the new railings is not far off where the old railings was. But the mystery is, and what they haven't sent us, or sent Parish, is a photograph of the other end of the railings, which, with the picture I have here, has this big gap between my neighbour's wall and the beginning of the. So the question is, why hasn't South Gloss sent us a picture of the other end? When they're trying to tell us that the railings are not off what they were. Of course they are off what they were, because there's a picture of them finishing. So we just need to get South Gloss to say to them, the residents down there are not happy. And a site meeting of some description to put matters afoot would be appropriate, because they're trying to say to us, I'm not saying that the South Gloss are trying to bring it out of it, but I can't see sending a photograph of one end of the railings and saying one thing and not bothering to take a picture of the other end. That's what they need to do. So we need to get some clarification on what a site meeting is the only way, I think. Yes.
I mean, I can speak to Ben previously, and he said he's quite open to having a meeting.
Yeah, lovely. So are you going to, shall I give you the neighbour's telephone so he can ring up the neighbour and then they can discuss it between them?
Yeah, you give me a ring tomorrow.
Or maybe later on after the meeting.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, it looks like somebody's taken ownership in Scotland from somebody else's taken ownership, perhaps.
Well, yes, they're only arguing half the point. You convinced still the same, that is it.
Marvellous, thanks for bringing that to attention. Hugh?
John, just very briefly, when the circulated schedule came around to us last week, there was an item about French Village Museum going for a refusal. I've been working very closely with Councillor Ben Burton since that moment to try and correct a misunderstanding. It had been agreed with the architect to have an extension of time for more information, which is in progress. So I'm hopeful that it's either going to be full, that's Ben's close, or at the very least there will be an opportunity for trustees to explain where they are at the planning committee. I don't know the answer yet.
Thank you, I'll come back to you. That's great. Is anything to add to yours?
I did have one point which you mentioned that. So a number of residents in French again have asked me to raise it to try and get some sort of information on what's happening in the hotel in French Road, where
This is holiday, just to
the
clarify.
holiday in the hotel where they live at the end of Filton Road in the houses there. There's large groups of male people walking around looking in all their windows. Now, we know it's perhaps an immigration hotel. Yeah, they understand that, but they just like to understand what's happening, what's going on there, because they as residents are concerned that these people are looking through their windows. Obviously, they're new to the country, probably they're looking in to see what's going on, whether there's any animosity or not, we don't know, and they just like some understanding. So they asked if I'd raise it at the parish to ask if we can, through the parish, get South Gloss or someone to give us some information on how long, who they are, give some comfort, because I'm sure they're not illegal immigrants as they would be there. There must be asylum seekers of some sort, but nobody knows and everyone's gossiping. And I just think it would be good for the parish to know what is going on there.
Thank you very much for that. to just highlight that it was in the FGP meeting, the beat officers trying to liaise to highlight schools. So
I'm in touch with Ben and his company responsible.
Haven't you? Right. Okay. This is since the FGP team. Yeah, I raised it there. This is recently. This is the last sort of residents just asked me.
And then that's my time. I was just highlighting before what had been raised and there was some action, so it's time for an update. But yes, it's perfectly reasonable that we're asking either South Gloucester or other authorities to support the processes. So, yeah, I certainly agree with what you said, FGP and same thing. I was just curious if there was any update from that.
Yeah, these are different people. They raised it with me before.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Yeah, so we'll see.
I think you'll find more supportive of what we're talking about.
yeah, very good. Thank you. Trevor.
Nothing, Peter.
You. Aaron. Thank you.
Yeah, one thing, please. You'll be aware that the section 106 money for regular development has doubled the size of Frenchie with absolutely no infrastructure provided, has created a fund of 360,000 that was available for sports facilities and play to assist with the provision of extra sporting facilities or things that were improvements. We've succeeded in securing £99,000 as a grant to be able to build toilets and changing rooms for Frenchie Tennis Club and other sports facilities there. You may recall that when the hospital was demolished, all the toilets and everything were taken out at the same time. So this will be funded through 106 grant troubling parish funds, but it will greatly enhance what we are able to offer to our residents. So that's just that.
Thank you. I appreciate the work that you and many others have done on this to secure that. So it's another important thing for the whole parish. So many thanks on that.
No, thank you, Paul.
In which case, I've not been told any other urgent considerations. So 8:33, if my eyes are correct,